So welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today, I'm bringing you Julie Liddell, founding attorney of the EdTech Law Center. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Me too. This is something that is, I think, on every parent's mind. Every parent who has a child in school and is thinking, how are my kids interacting with tech? Is it safe? And I have had concern about my own child's use of technology. And we'll get into that little story before we get into questions that I've received from parents. But first, I want to know how you got into this work helping parents through this challenge.
Sure. Yeah. So just quick background about me. I am a lawyer. I live in Austin, Texas, and I spent the better part of my career working for courts, judges in appellate courts across Texas, and working as a staff attorney, helping judges resolve disputes. And so I've really seen a little bit of everything from civil, commercial litigation disputes to death penalty appeals. I've kind of seen it all. And so I was sort of doing this work, my public service work, and was very content with that. About 6 years ago, we had some friends in a public school district in the Austin area. It was a prestigious school district who's had 2 kids in the school system, one of whom was 6. He was in first grade, and the district had a 1-to-1 iPad program. And so he gets to school and gets handed this tablet. And he, shortly into the year, starts asking Siri for pictures of sexy ladies. And I don't know if there were any attempted filters in place or not, but you know how this goes. He got all of the results, and it went on for weeks. And I think it wasn't until there was kind of a crowd of students around his desk that the teacher clued into what was happening and immediately contacted his parents, who of course were mortified and outraged and escalated it, took it to the administration. And unfortunately, their response was not, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We're going to figure out what we can do, conduct an investigation, make sure this doesn't happen again." It was instead to say, "Well, maybe you need to have a chat with your son about what's appropriate behavior on the internet. And this is, an outlier case." Well, fortunately, they didn't leave it there. They went to other parents in the community, and no surprise, there had been all sorts of incidents like this. And they actually they started a petition for one opt-out class, a class in each grade that wasn't dependent on technology. And within, I think, days or weeks, they had 10% of the district signed up for this opt-out class. And unfortunately, despite going to board meetings, despite bringing local media attention to it, they couldn't seem to make a difference in their district. And that was 6 years ago. And I'm really sad to say that there hasn't been a lot of change since. But that did start me on me and my husband, kind of our journey in this space, and doing what we can to try to raise some awareness, and bring some change to the use of technology and screens in the classroom. And that looks like a lot of things. That's been a whole lot of coalition building among parents and teachers and lawmakers and other stakeholders to try to make change. That's been working with school administrators to make change locally. That has been working with local and state representatives. That has been building relationships with federal regulators, on and on and on. And not to say that it's all been for naught, but I think none of us are thrilled with the progress that we've made in that time. And so that has led me to this place of understanding the power that litigation can have, and seeing the work of other law firms like the Social Media Victims Law Center, who have done incredible work in raising awareness around the harms of social media, and bringing a spotlight to that, and bringing that to the court's attention to make real change. And that has been, without even those cases having been resolved yet, just by virtue of filing them, it has made tremendous change. And that was hugely inspiring to me. So that's why I started this firm, was to focus on those same issues and harms, specifically in the classroom context.
Okay. And what are you thinking? Like, how common is it for a child to get access to something inappropriate on a school issued device from your experience in kind of having an eye on many different school districts in the country?
It is very common. It is disturbingly common. A lot of school districts simply don't have the resources or the wherewithal, the information they need to employ various, the third party filters and internet restricting products and services that are available to try to limit kids' access to the open internet. And even those that do, no filter is 100%. And so it's definitely a range. Unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, the better resource districts tend to have better tools in place to protect kids. But unfortunately, as is too often the case, it is the most vulnerable kids who are being harmed disproportionately. And it's happening in school districts of all shapes and sizes across the country every single day. And I think parents, there's some shame, I think, and guilt that parents feel around that when it happens, as though it's their fault or their child's fault. And it's so wrong. And it's such an unfair story. It's a narrative that I think has been spun by tech companies and to some extent by school administrators. And that couldn't be further from the truth, that they are very much victims of these dangerous products. The fault lies not with them, but with those who are in charge of these products.
Okay. So let me give listeners who may already know, but let me give a little background on what happened at my school in the past week. So on Friday, today's Thursday, on Friday of last week, a student was playing Geometry Dash Light, which is a game, a math game. And he was served a pop-up ad featuring a fully naked woman. And the ad was for a virtual AI girlfriend. And so this was extremely concerning, being as I have asked if the apps our kids have access to have ads and was told no previously. So that was concerning. So I went into my third grader's classroom to do a spot check on her iPad. I know they have Safari access. I typed in YouTube, clicked on shorts, and scrolled for under a minute and was served a video that was telling her to harm herself, a self-harm video. I won't go into details on it. I did share that on social media and was told by dozens of people that there's also an icon that was drawn into the video that the FBI has identified as a pedophilia symbol to kind of indicate that this is a pedophile looking for children on my child's iPad during school hours in the classroom. So those are some examples of the worst stuff that there's probably worse than that. There's children that are actually communicating with pedophiles on these devices and things like that. But I was very concerned and brought it to the attention of the district. And like you said, I expected some empathy. I expected some, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We'll take care of that right away. And I got nothing. And can we start there with like, why can't schools just be on our side about this, Julie? It's like, can I get a little empathy?
It is a question I've been asking now for about 6 years, and one that I think has a lot of reasons. And I want to start by saying that at a very high level, I could not be more sympathetic for schools. They are, especially public schools, they have an impossible job. It is, I think, just the most important job in the world is educating our kids and making them ready to be leaders of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the resources necessary to properly do it. And so they are, in that sense, very vulnerable. I think a lot of them feel desperate. And you get these companies that come in with very big promises and flashy marketing campaigns and big, claims of, we hear you, we see you, and we have these things that will help, and we can give them to you for something that you can afford, or if you can't afford, we'll figure out a way to work with you to make these products available. And it does seem kind of this too good to be true solution to these problems that school districts are having.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they kind of sign on the dotted line, and there's a little bit of confirmation bias that's happening there, where it's, we made this decision, we've kind of put our lot in with these companies, and we aren't particularly eager to hear that it's maybe not all it's cracked up to be, or that maybe we made a mistake in implementing these various products and services into our classroom, into our curriculum. So I do think that is at play. I don't actually think there are like suitcases of money being like slid under the table at these meetings. I think it's much more innocuous, and at least it starts very well intended with, these products are marketed not just as nice to haves or giving you a leg up. They're marketed as essential. If you don't have these, your kids are going to be left behind. They're not going to be ready for the future. They aren't going to learn the 21st century skills they need to succeed, to be competitive, as adults. And so there's a lot of fear that drives it. But I will say I have been continually surprised and disappointed when administration either learns directly or through parents that kids are being harmed by these products, that there isn't more sympathy there, that there isn't more, oh my gosh, we thought this was one thing. It turns out it was something else. Let's work together to figure out how to make it right, and to figure out, let's reevaluate our approach to technology in the first place. It's not too late to do that. We can rethink how we're implementing technology in school. But unfortunately, so far, I just haven't seen any administrators, any school districts who have really been willing to lead the way on that front.
Okay. And, I was especially disappointed because I do this work, so I'm very familiar with online harms. And so I've been trying to work with the district and bring them resources for about a year, and specifically asking them to remove YouTube from at least the younger grades' iPads. And this was where I saw the video. And so that was a really hard thing for me to process. And so I have decided now that I do not find the school-issued devices to be safe for my children, and I don't want my kids to use them anymore. And so I requested opt-out paperwork or options. I was met with resistance in that and told that does not exist, and they need to take several weeks to come up with alternative plans. And to that I said, that's not good enough. I don't feel that my children are safe on them, and I'm not willing to let them use these devices any longer. And so, and that's when we got in contact, because I am not this is all new to me. I don't love conflict. This is not a fun situation to be in. I just want my kids to be safe. And I just want to be able to dictate how they're introduced to devices and when, and be able to keep them safe. So I shared this situation with Instagram mainly, and a lot of parents. I mean, there's a few 100,000 views on these videos. So many parents saying that they feel the same way and that they don't know how to handle this. And so I thought it was important to get their questions regarding what are our parental rights related to these school-issued devices, and then ask you and help parents navigate this very difficult and confusing situation that we find ourselves in.
That's wonderful. Yep.
Okay, so let's get into the questions. And we received a lot. So we consolidated them a bit, and I'll go ahead and ask them and then have you respond. We'll get through as many as we can. So generally, first question, what are families' rights around tech in the classroom?
I think number one, it's a right to be informed. And that starts with a comprehensive set list of what digital services and products will my child have access to this year. Mm-hmm. I have not met a parent or a district that has provided that information to parents ever, even on request. That should be disclosed straight out of the gate, not least because parents' consent is required. It is required before districts let these children use these devices. Mm-hmm. And so you have to start with what are the products and services that my child will be using, and what are their terms of service and privacy policies around data, because both federal and state law requires that tech companies obtain parental consent before they may collect and use children's information. And there is not an internet connected product or service today that doesn't collect user information in order to function. And so by virtue of using, there is no more closed computer lab that has a laptop that's not connected to the internet, that you use your floppy disk to upload content and play Oregon Trail. Those days are behind us.
Yeah.
All of these products and services now collect personal information. And before tech companies can do that, they have to get consent. That may not come from schools. And I want to reiterate that because that is a fundamental misunderstanding among everyone, among parents, among schools, among tech companies. And these are issues that we are currently litigating in our data privacy cases. And so I guess I should add a disclaimer that there has been no judicial ruling on this question yet.
Okay.
Having worked for courts my whole career and interpreting statutes and applying laws on facts that are much more complicated than this, it seems very clear to me that no law gives schools unfettered, carte blanche authority to consent to the collection and use of children's personal information for any purpose, educational or otherwise. We will have these issues are now, like I say, they are before the judge. We will be arguing them in the coming months and we will get a decision. And so I will definitely follow up once we have decisions on these very important issues, because this is what I believe is the fundamental misunderstanding that has propped up this entire industry. And school administrators need to be aware that they could be implicated if they are facilitating children's access to this information and the taking and use of their personal information by tech companies without effective consent from parents. And that means that it's, number one, informed, that they know exactly what these products are, what their data practices are, which means what information are you taking? How are you using it? Who has access to it?
Right.
Where do you store it? And do I have a right? Can I access it? Can I review it? Can I correct it? Can I revoke my consent? And the other piece is it has to be voluntary. That means it cannot be part of essentially a click-wrap agreement at the beginning of the year in your enrollment forms. That is not voluntary. If you have to agree to letting these private companies taking your children's personal information in order to enroll in school, that is not voluntary. That is not effective consent. So I would say that is the number one thing. If parents take nothing else away, it's understand that you have a right to be informed and you have a right to consent, and more importantly, a right to say no to your children using these products.
Julie, there it is. That is so important. And I think I was the first one ever in the whole district to ask our tech guy, hey, what, well, I gathered the apps my child would be using from the principal, from the teachers, took them to the tech guy. What data is being collected on my children? It took a while, got that data, follow-up question, which data is being shared and which apps are sharing with what third parties. And that information has not been provided. And I think they don't know.
They don't know. They don't know. And if you approach the tech companies, to the extent that they respond, they will refer you to the schools, and schools don't know.
Okay. I'm going to clip this and I want parents to just send it to their school, this question and answer, because I think, we can start with, okay, ask these questions or ask your school to proactively provide this, but it's more than that. I mean, the system is broken there. And, okay.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Julie. All right. Next question. What about enrollment forms and, quote, contracts around tech? Do I have to sign them and are they binding?
The question of do you have to sign them is going to be district specific. I've heard of plenty that, like I said, they won't let you enroll unless you check, I agree.
Wow.
That is not binding. Again, as I said, if that is part of the requirement for you to enroll your child into school and the educational services and to which they are legally entitled, and every state guarantees their children a right, not only a right, but a duty to send their kids to school or to ensure that they receive an education.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot be conditioned upon them agreeing to use dangerous products, including those that exploit their personal information. So I would say if there's an option to say no, say it.
Mm-hmm.
And have that conversation. That's a great way to start a conversation with your school administrators. If you find yourself in a position, as so many do, where you have no choice but to say yes. Say yes. Don't compromise your kid's ability to be enrolled and go to school. And don't worry, because it's not legally such documentation that it had no effect.
Okay. And then you can further opt out even after you've signed that. Like I did, because I signed that not thinking I had an option. And then now I'm being told, advised by you that it doesn't hold any weight.
That's right. And unfortunately, this conversation now is cast as an opt-out, right? Because that is practically what it is, when legally it should be opt-in. Mm-hmm. As I said, affirmative consent is required by parents before children may use these products. And so we've gotten the whole the narrative, the framework is upside down, where it's incumbent upon parents to take steps to keep their kids from using these technologies, when really it should be incumbent upon the tech providers and the schools they serve to obtain that informed voluntary consent before children are able to use these devices and these products and services. Okay. So all that to say, yes, unfortunately, we are in an opt-out paradigm, but it shouldn't be the case. But absolutely, yes, you can let your district know expressly, you do not have my consent for my child to use these dangerous and exploitative products.
Okay. And the more parents that want to opt out and state that, and the more litigation, the laws will follow. Like, they will have to give parents an option.
And I would say the laws are already there. They're just not being enforced.
Okay.
I think by and large, there is a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of naivety around what's happening with technology in the classroom. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're just now as a society coming to grapple with the realities of the internet that you and I use every day, and understanding that it's harmful, and that actually there is a business model, there is a profit motive that is not aligned with my health and wellness and privacy and security.
Right.
And I think right now we kind of have blinders on that. Oh, but when it's tech in schools, it's different. The products are different. The services are different. It's school. Our kid, we have to send our kids there. They have to be safe. Yeah. And the reality is they're not. There is no different. What I say about EdTech, education technology, it doesn't describe a product or even the objective of the product or service. It describes a market. That just means technology companies that market and sell into schools. Mm-hmm. But the technology behind it, the business model behind it, is no different than any of the services that you or I use online every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So not safe just because it's behind school walls.
Especially not. And I would say, especially given that, number one, it's children, and number two, it is a compulsory environment. All the more, any legal arguments or policy arguments that are in favor of creating a more transparent, a fairer, a more equitable internet. Mm-hmm. For adults, ostensibly using these products voluntarily, so much truer are those arguments for children using these products in the compulsory environment of education.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. How do I begin a conversation with my school about tech? So where do I start?
I think a good way to start is with what we talked about,
Yeah.
the enrollment documents. Everyone has one of these responsible use contracts, right?
Mhm.
And to the extent that you're able to, that you have a piece of paper that your school gives you that you can fill out and you could take that and say, I have concerns about this. That's a great way to start the conversation to say, number one, what what products and services are my kids using? Will they have access to while they're at school? And what are the terms of service? What are the privacy policies of those various vendors? And number two, what are you doing as a school to ensure that those are safe? Can you tell me about what are the risks of danger that those products and services pose to my children? That's a great place to start. I mean, that sounds so basic. So like,
Yeah.
it's shocking to realize that that's not already happening, but only if you
Right.
take that step back and realize that should be happening.
I've told board members, I've told the principal, why aren't we getting proactively that information? If you are the caregiver of my child in these situations where they're at 33-1 and they all have a device in their hand, the teacher can't keep an eye on them. How are they safe on these devices?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. And unfortunately, I am yet to see a district that has even been able to produce a comprehensive static list of digital products and services that kids have access to, which is, I mean, if they aren't even able to do that, then we have very serious structural problems. I think I read something, a statistic that the average school district, and it's hard to believe this could be true, but the average school district uses something like 2,500 digital products and services. There is no way that they have tabs on all of those products to know what kids have access to, what they're accessing when they're on that platform, those platforms, what information is being taken from them on those platforms and how it's being used. It is impossible, not least of which because these companies go out of their way to ensure that that's all a black box.
And are our kids learning anything from these gamified apps, Julie?
I wish the answer was a resounding yes.
Oh my God.
So now we just need to iron out the kinks around that data and these other sort of peripheral harms. But I haven't seen that. I haven't seen independent data to support that. And on the contrary, you've seen the opposite, that student outcomes by any metric, and not since COVID, not just since COVID,
right,
but since in the last 10, 12 years, they are down across the board. And it's hard not to see that coincides with the mass implementation of technologies in the classroom. And so, it's, as my husband says, at least steroids actually make you stronger and faster. Like they're harmful, but there are seeable, knowable benefits. We haven't even seen that with these tools yet.
It's so ridiculous that we got here. Crazy to me.
Yes.
Okay. How can I know what personal info has been taken from my child? So you ask, right? You ask, and then they probably don't know.
Right. Correct. Yeah. That's unfortunately, we have not had a lot of success on that front.
Okay.
In the years that we've been trying to get that information, absolutely go ahead, ask your school. You can send a request under FERPA. That's the federal law that allows you access to your kids' personal information and their education records. Unfortunately, our experience has been that if schools respond, it's very piecemeal and I think the bottom line is they simply don't have access to that information and they can't provide it. And so, and like I said, you can go to tech companies who actually do have the information and would be able to provide it, and they're just going to refer you back to schools. So there's, if anyone is out there who has found a way to get that information, please let me know, because we've tried all the ways and we just haven't been successful in getting that a complete snapshot of that information.
Okay. And in case anyone doesn't understand, why is it a concern for these companies to be gathering personal information from our children?
It's a great question. And there are so many reasons. And unfortunately, now we're to a place where you start talking about data and data privacy and eyes glaze over, not because people don't care, but because it just feels like it's a foregone conclusion. This is the world we live in now. We have no control over it. And okay, I see ads that creepily follow me all over the internet, which is a bummer, but what am I going to do about it?
Right.
The harms are so much worse than that. And to be clear, not to diminish that in and of itself, especially when you're talking about kids, is a huge problem. Behavioral advertising is a very real problem. The AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, has come out repeatedly talking about the detrimental effects of that. And so that is absolutely a concern. But beyond that, you have, the issue of data abuse and misuse, right? Data insecurity, hackers that specifically target schools and school systems because, number one, because they are typically very insecure. And number two, it's such valuable data. There is no more valuable data than student data. That is the holy grail of data in the data economy. But then beyond that, I think that's something that we kind of is knowable, and we understand the concerns around that. But beyond that are much more, they're complicated and a little bit esoteric, but they're, I would say, the most consequential harms that we all need to know about. So if you can just bear with me for a minute as I talk about algorithmic profiling.
Okay.
But the idea is that these companies collect all of the data that they can about kids, ranging from their demographic information, personal information, financial information, family history, on and on and on. It's the sky's the limit on what they collect. They use that information to create digital profiles, dossiers of children that they then sell to anyone and everyone. It's across all domains of people, as you can imagine, various industries, various private companies, various governments who would love to have the information about all of us, our most private personal information in making decisions about us. And so you can imagine what I analogize it to, and I have to give credit where it's due. I read a book called Weapons of Math Destruction. It came out many years ago by a woman named Kathy O'Neill. And for me, that was the best resource of everything I've read that helped me understand why we need to care about this, why it's so significant. And what she analogized it to was a credit report that I think most of us at least have some understanding of how that works, right? There's information that is gathered about us from all of these different sources about essentially our credit worthiness. And it's since been expanded to kind of our employment worthiness. And it's a very consequential report that has now, there is a robust regulatory framework that governs those reports, that requires that any credit agency or anyone who's making decisions based on this information is required to disclose what information is used to build those reports. You are required to be notified if that information is used in any way that's adversarial to you. You are enabled to contest any information that you believe is incorrect, because so consequential are these reports and whether you get a loan or whether you even get a job.
Right.
That is what is happening everywhere now. This information is being used and sold to colleges, to employers, to banks, to lenders, even to law enforcement. And so while we can be harmed in ways that we never even know about, your child doesn't get into a school. They don't get an internship. They don't get that job. you get a call from law enforcement and you have no idea why. And it's because they have gotten this information about your child, you or your child, that may not even be correct. But they are now making these decisions that have very real effects on your child's life now and in the future. And so it's as though it's like the credit reporting system, except not only do you not have access to those reports and an understanding of what information is used in them and how they are used and who has access to them, you don't even know that system exists. And that is what's happening with all of our information across all domains right now. And that is more, I would argue more than anything else is the reason that we need to care about what information these companies are collecting and how they're using it.
Is this data making it to the social media companies?
In short, I think we have to assume that data is being shared broadly across these tech companies. You have data brokers that, of course, are in the business of collecting this information and making it available. You have above data brokers, the companies that are called identity resolution companies. And these are companies that they're sort of the mother of all data brokers. They take all of this information that's collected from an ed tech platform, from social media, from, when you sign up for a loan or when you apply for a job, and they take all of this information and they put it into one comprehensive profile that is you. And they sell those to anyone and everyone. There's no reason to think that social media doesn't have access. They sit on both sides of the transaction, right? They both provide this information to these companies, as do so many of these ed tech companies. They both provide data that fuels these profiles, and then they receive them and use them and make them available to other people for various commercial purposes.
Okay. I just know how influenced children are by social media and the advertisements that they receive and the algorithms, that giving them a dossier on all the information that's been collected on them since kindergarten just allows those companies to manipulate them even further. And that is concerning to me, in addition to all the things that you mentioned already.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think it's important to understand that it's a vicious cycle, that they use this information to manipulate kids, to keep them using, to keep them scrolling, to keep them clicking, to keep them addicted, which in turn allows them to gather more information about kids, which then it is an absolutely vicious and very profitable cycle for these companies.
Okay. So let's move on with the questions. Okay. Can I opt out of using some tech or all tech? Are schools required to accommodate that request?
So this kind of gets back to the idea of, number one, it should be opt in and not opt out.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But yes, absolutely. At minimum, you do have a right to say no, to say, I do not provide my consent to my child using these dangerous and exploitative products. And the school cannot make your child use those products in order to receive an education.
Okay.
Full stop. Like I want to just really let that, just parents hear that, know that your children do not have to use these products. You have a legal right and duty to send your kids to school. And as part of that, you cannot be forced to agree to your kids using these products and services. Now, the question of whether your school has a duty to accommodate is a little bit more of a nuanced and fact-specific question, because it depends on the product or service, right? It depends on how integral it is to the curriculum. If, for example, this is something that's kind of optional use, you can do it during your free time, during advisory. You can hop on this app and play these games to learn. Does the school have an obligation to provide you a non-digital alternative to that? Probably not.
Right.
If it is something that is essential, core to the curriculum, if you, for example, are not going to be able to learn math unless you use these products, and meet the standards that they need to meet, the education standards that they meet, then absolutely the school must figure out a way for your child to do that doesn't require exposure to these exploitative, harmful products.
Okay. So that includes state testing, which a lot of that is online for most states.
That's right. And that is a whole morass. That is a very different question that, as with so many of these, that hasn't been litigated yet. And so again, to reiterate, these are my legal opinions about just generally about what the law says and what can be required under my reading of the law. And I have not been able to find an interpretation of these various laws that apply that would say they actually don't apply in this instance because this is standardized testing and the district or the school board or the state, whomever the decision maker has decided that this has to happen online.
Okay.
I would love the chance to bring that question before a judge and say, Judge, this is the conundrum right now that parents and administrators are facing across the country.
Yes.
What are we going to do about it?
Okay, right. Okay, so when we're talking about a full opt-out, and I've asked my daughter this because she's been involved in these conversations, and I asked her, how will you feel if you're the only one in class that does not get to use an iPad? And she's like, I don't care. I know it's not good for me. And she's my daughter, so she knows the problems. But what do you have to share about the stigma of that and the child's experience of being the only one?
This is maybe the hardest part of this entire thing. I mean, it's so hard, obviously, for parents to go and have these conversations and be bullied, but the effect that it has on kids is really, honestly, it's really what infuriates me the most, that these companies have put these kids in this position, have put these parents and especially these kids in this position of feeling different. And when all kids want to do is not feel different,
right.
They want to do what everyone else is doing. And why are mom and dad not letting me do what everyone else is doing? And I have to sit here and do a different activity while everyone else is on this platform. And so it is the hardest question, I think, in all of this, to which I would say, number one is talk to your kids. Like you say, you have talked with your kids about this and they have an understanding that this isn't mom being, just difficult and trying to make life hard for her or for her teacher. This comes from a very sincere and well-informed place. And above all, it's coming from a place of, I love you and I want to protect you above all else. Even if it's difficult today, my job isn't to make sure that you feel comfortable at all times. As your parent, my job is to make sure that you're safe and to set you up for success today and in the future. And so those conversations are very, very important to have with kids. I would also say there's strength in numbers. Talk to fellow parents about it and let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Invite them to have these conversations with you, to share those who are willing to learn and wanting to learn more about it. There are unlimited resources out there now about this issue. Educate your kids' peers' parents about it and go, there's no stronger action than collective action. And this is a collective problem. And it is much more powerful if you have a group of parents going forward and saying, we're not okay with this. And this isn't okay for our children. And so we're not gonna agree to this happening. And even just having, one other friend in your class who also is doing what you're doing can go such a long way.
And I assume that if they're making the adjustments for one child, it would be easy for them to just add another child to that plan.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And it also makes it harder for them to cast you as an outlier and hyper, over high maintenance, overprotective parent, that this is not just me. This is, we're all learning here. We're all learning more about this. And as we do, we feel really strongly that we take a big step back from our approach to tech that maybe was well intended and made sense 10 years ago. But as we learn more information about it, actually, there's a lot of red flags and we need to take a pause. And that's not to say no tech of any kind ever. That's to say not this kind of tech right now. And to start that again, not as a scold or coming from a judgmental or scornful place, but truly like we're all trying to figure this out, and let's all work together to figure out how to make this best for everyone.
Okay. Is there a middle ground that you would recommend parents try for? So is there a way to make these devices safer or used in a safer way without doing a complete opt-out?
Oh, I'm sure there is a way to make things safer. This is, as I said, I think certain districts, especially districts that are well resourced, have been able to invest in various tools that allow for filtering and, internet restriction, so that it's not truly just your child gets a device that is an unrestricted portal to the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And those certainly help. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing is foolproof because not only are the products themselves not foolproof, our kids are always one, if not many steps ahead of us, and they will figure out ways around these different filters and efforts to restrict their kids. That's what they do. I would expect no less, frankly. They should be curious. They should be pushing boundaries. That's okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it is very, very, it's a dangerous world. It is a wild west on the internet. And I think, honestly, I think rather than shifting the burden to school districts to try to cobble together some patchwork of solutions to try to rein in kids' access to the internet, it really should be incumbent upon the makers of these technologies themselves to do that work, to make sure that if they are going to sell and market products into schools, especially elementary schools, especially where they know that very young users are going to be using them, they need to come out of the box safe. Like hard stop. Like that is, I'm taking the position, and actually I'm about to file a case next week that's going to be arguing that very thing, that this should not be, it shouldn't be the burden of administrators or teachers or parents or kids themselves. These companies that are selling these products into school and internalizing and realizing all of the profit that they get from that, they have a commensurate duty to make sure that those products are safe. And that can't require externalizing that burden or those costs to anybody else, any other third party. And especially not, again, with the disproportionate effects of then you wind up with the already, the least resourced, the most vulnerable districts and their children being harmed the most. And that is unacceptable. So we will, as with all of this, I'm just eager to get these questions before a judge and say, Your Honor, these children are being hurt. That is not disputed. And the question is, whose responsibility is it? Whose duty is it to make sure that they don't get harmed while using products, especially products in classrooms that are required to do their schoolwork, that are required to do their homework? And the answer is not parents. The answer is not kids themselves. The answer lies somewhere between. It is school districts to an extent, but I think that the real responsibility lies with the company that makes the products and sells them into schools.
Is any company working on school-safe devices? Because with smartphones, for example, we now have access to products like Bark and Gab that are smartphones that were built safe from the ground up. They're talk and text only, and then you have to add on things as parents decide what our kids are ready for. So is anything like that being produced for schools?
Unfortunately, I have not heard of any such thing. And I think a big reason for that is they can't compete. They're up against the most valuable, most well-resourced companies on the planet. And they cannot compete with companies who can sell their devices for cheap or free to these schools because they are subsidized by an illegal business model, because they are subsidized by the illegal taking and use of children's data. And until we get a judge to say, you cannot do that, you cannot prop up your products on kids' personal information, exploitation of kids' personal information, it's anti-competitive. That it's too hard for other companies to and I know they're out there. I know that there are other companies who would love to actually build products that are good for kids, that are built not for data collection with the corollary like education benefits, but that are actually built and optimized to help kids, to support their health, wellness, and learning. And I think right now we do not have a business environment that allows for those companies to emerge and to thrive.
Okay. So the status quo is that it is unsafe and that parents need to speak up and make sure schools are proactively or ask for schools to proactively give us the information around what our children are using, what data is being collected, who it's being shared with, and consider not signing the form, consider opting out, or bring this up to your school and bring together other parents who are also concerned. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you think is important for parents to think about?
I think the number one thing is trust your instincts. As parents, no one knows better for our kids than we do. And you need to trust that. Do not be bullied out of that. Do not be persuaded that you're being high maintenance, that you're a Luddite, that you just don't understand that you're an outlier. Trust your instincts and act on them, because right now we are our children's only line of defense. There is nobody else that's stepping in, especially in the school context, who's looking out to make sure that they're protected. Yeah. And so my hope is that as we continue to move forward with these cases and raising awareness and parents speaking out, that won't always be the case, but we only get there by parents speaking out, by parents taking a stand and being the squeaky wheel that I know none of us wants to be. We just want our kids to go to school and be safe and happy. And, we don't want to create more work for our already overworked teachers. Yeah. No. But at the end of the day, there is nothing more important than our kids' health and wellness and safety. And right now that is entirely up to us to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah. And I'm not anti-tech. I'm just a mom that's anti my 8-year-old seeing a self-harm video on her school device. That's
right.
And in my work, I interview parents who've lost children to suicide after a slow and steady drip of this type of content being served to them over years. And that's where it could have started for my daughter. And I will not allow her to be put in that situation by the school. It's not okay with me. And I'm going to be that parent that's going to speak up. And look, it's very easy for me to pull my kids out of this school and put them in a low-tech private school. And I may still do that, but I'm also going to stand up for other children whose parents don't realize that they're getting harmful content and that they're being harmed by these devices. And it takes, I think, one mom questioning the district and pushing, and it's uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't like being in conflict with my school district, but I'm doing it for my kids and for the safety of other children. And so I encourage other parents to do the same.
It's so important. If parents take away one thing from this, that's it. It's up to us, and it's uncomfortable, but it is our responsibility. Our kids are depending on us to step up for them and have these uncomfortable conversations, to continue to press it until we get the results that we want. And I'm just a shout out to my clients, to my plaintiffs in these cases who have been willing to come forward. And nobody wants to get involved in litigation, especially not with their children.
No.
And but their willingness to do this because they recognize that other things haven't worked.
Mhm.
And this does. I mean, litigation has a track record of bringing about real social change, right?
Mhm.
Think tobacco, think asbestos, think auto safety, think civil rights.
Mhm.
That this is a real way to bring about change, but it is scary. So I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to all of the parents out there, whether it is actively getting involved in litigation or whether it's just standing up to your school administrators and saying this is not okay.
Mhm.
I'm so thankful for all of you out there, and the more we all do it, the easier it will be for the rest of us to do.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up because I just got a call from my district and I'm about to have that uncomfortable conversation.
Okay, very good.
Oh,
Well,
Julie.
good luck with it, and please let me know how it goes.
I will. And thank you so much for all your work on this. This is so important. And schools are just realizing that parents are not going to back down on this. And we have resources like you to help educate us on our rights. And I have a feeling we'll do another one of these with another round of questions and an update at some point soon. And so parents can go to edtech.law, right, to learn more about Julie.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Okay.
that's right. And thank you so much, Nikki, for all your work in this and for using your platform to raise awareness and bring about change. I really appreciate it.